Yo, Christianity Today just posted this really cringe and transphobic article called "They is not a pronoun for God," subtitled "God doesn't have a gender, but his pronouns do." Y'all really think you're defending God's pronouns? God's probably like, check my bio, it says any all, plus L, plus you're white, plus ratio. Hello, my name is they. Nice to meet you. My name is Damon. And I'm literally the type of Christian that Christianity Today is trying to save you all from. But if you're on my YouTube channel right now, trust me, you're on a way cooler part of the internet than Christianity Today. First of all, we're not transphobic. We're pro-trans rights and trans rights. Second, Christianity Today was launched with funding from oil executives to promote a free enterprise capitalist Christianity against the dangerous liberal Christianity from the Christian Century magazine. Over here, we just got like a little Patreon and shit. And three, over here we knew Mark Driscoll was awful way before it was cool. Now, I read this article and it seems like the motivation for it is some classic fundamentalist reactionary projection. Other people are doing things differently? That means they're trying to force me to do things exactly as they do. We're becoming more accepting of gay people and trans people? That must mean they're trying to force me or force my child to be gay and trans. The cashier told me happy holidays because their boss forced them to put on more emotional labor during December. That must mean they're trying to force me to say happy holidays. A few Christian groups are calling God they. That must mean they're trying to force everyone to call God they. These types of Christians think this way because they're trying to force people to talk, act, and believe a certain way, so they assume everyone else is trying to do the same to them. This is what it's always been for fundamentalist Christianity. The article argues that God is only referred to by masculine pronouns in the Bible, so therefore we should only refer to God with masculine pronouns. Of course, it also throws in the classic grammar simp argument, saying that people using they in the singular form is a linguistic leap previously non-existent in the English language. Stop saying this, people. English speakers already use they in the singular form all the time, and we have for centuries. And stop simping for a childish view of grammar so hard. Words were made for humans, not humans for words. If you can say you are in the singular, you can say they are, or even they is if you want. Timbaland was saying I are in 2007. Now, the only reason that God was primarily referred to with masculine pronouns in the Bible is because in ancient Israelite religion, God was primarily understood as creator and life giver, the source of all life. And in ancient Eastern culture, the father was typically understood as having the primary role in creating life because the father put his seed in the mother. Or perhaps they would say that the father put the child in the mother. We now know from modern biological explanations of reproduction that it's not that simple. We now know that it's all storks, but that was the ancient Eastern understanding of things. But that's the reason God is primarily referred to with masculine pronouns in the Bible. The article is arguing that God is only referred to with masculine pronouns and is only masculine, but that's not true. In Numbers 11:15, Moses refers to God with a feminine pronoun when he says to God, "If this is the way you are going to treat me, put me to death at once." The use of you there in the Hebrew is the second person singular feminine form of you in Hebrew. In that chapter, Moses is overwhelmed by the difficulties of leading Israel, and he tells God, "You're the one who gave birth to these people, and now you're giving me the burden of nursing and carrying them." And then he refers to God with a feminine pronoun there. Throughout the Bible, God is also described as a mother as well as a father. In Isaiah 49, God says, "Like a mother won't forget her child at her breast, I will not forget you." In Isaiah 66, God says, "As a mother comforts her child, so I will comfort you." Deuteronomy 32 describes God carrying Israel like a mother eagle carries and hovers over her young. In Job 38, referring to herself, God says, "From whose womb comes the ice? Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens?" God has a womb, apparently. Hosea 13 describes God as a mother bear who attacks and devours someone who robbed her cubs, which is a fascinating angle on the wrath of God. The way a lot of conservative Christians talk about the wrath of God, it sounds like the wrath of a tyrant against those who harm his ego or who don't conform. But when Hosea describes the wrath of God, it's the wrath of a mother against those who harm her children. That's pretty different. And I believe when it comes to transphobia, this wrathful mother God does not seek to protect transphobic Christians from harm. Rather, this wrathful mother God seeks to protect trans people from the kind of transphobic Christians that wrote and promoted this article. Every year, more trans people are murdered as transphobia increases, and Christianity is primarily responsible for the history of violence against trans people. So as we continue to fight for trans rights, we will all understand that not only are these Christians on the wrong side of history, but they're also on the wrong side of God. Then in the New Testament, God is frequently described as breastfeeding Christians. We could go on and on about this, looking at the Hebrew and Greek and cultural contexts and the parables of Jesus and translating the names of God in different ways, but you get it. If you want to learn more about God as feminine, there's the classic feminist theology book, She Who Is by Elizabeth Johnson. But there's also a book coming out next month called God is a Black Woman by Christina Cleveland that looks really good and we should all check out too. But I love this part in She Who Is where Elizabeth Johnson argues that referring to God as feminine is not saying that God has a feminine side. It's not saying God is partly feminine and partly masculine. God is wholly masculine as well as wholly feminine. And I think we could also argue that God is wholly non-binary as well. Of course. And a lot of Christians also rightly argue that God making male and female in the image of God means that God is both male and female and even transcends male and female, which is great. Even though I'm sure Christianity today would be like, it's Elohim, not Elo them. To which we would say, shut up. But what if we took this a step further and considered this? If God is able to be expressed in both masculine, feminine, and beyond, then us being made in the image of God means we each share that characteristic with God. When we express ourselves in both masculine, feminine, and beyond, we're not doing that in spite of God. We're doing that along with God, who has always done the same thing. Challenging, bending, playing with, and transcending our gender expression is not going against who God made us to be, as many transphobic Christians argue, but it is actually living into who God made us to be, because God does it all the time too. It's all over the Bible. Transphobic Christians argue that it's natural and necessary to stick to a strict gender expression and never challenge it, but God doesn't do that. So if we're made in the image of God, then when we bend and transcend our gender expression however we please, then it's natural to who God made us to be as God's image bearers. This God is way bigger than the box that these types of Christians try to stuff them in. We're trying to break that box open. So yeah, subscribe for more videos like this. Also, I'm releasing a book in August on Broadleaf Books called The God Who Riots, Taking Back the Radical Jesus. I put my all into this book, and I think a lot of you will really resonate with it. So the pre-order link for that is in the description. Check it out. And also, if you'd like to support me in general, I would really appreciate it. You can check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Damon Garcia. Shout out everyone already over there. A bunch of cool people over there. A bunch of cool stuff on the Patreon page. And I'll see you for the next video. Bye-bye.